Okay, hello everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever in the world it is you're watching us from. My name is Ifiok Ikiagu. Welcome to Early Years Heartland. I think I'm just gonna hold on a bit and see who's joining us from everywhere in the world. So if you are joining us now, if you're joining us this evening or this morning or this afternoon, from wherever it is, it would be nice to tell us your name and where you are joining us from. Welcome, 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 welcome. I can see here that we are already joined by a couple of people. So welcome to this series. It's part 2 of this series where we talk about children's fear, anxiety, and worry and how they can better manage themselves, how we as adults and how we as individuals working with children, how we as parents, as educators can work with our children to help them through these heavy or these stressful periods. So thank you once again for joining us, and we hope that we are able to give you great value. We're just going to go ahead. I am going to, let me introduce myself a little bit. For those who don't know me, and as you join us, my name is Ifiok Ikiagu, and I'm an early childhood educator living and working in the United Arab Emirates. I've been in the field of early childhood for quite a while. And so it gives me great pleasure to know that I can be of help. I can go out there and give value to parents, to educators, and to anyone working with young children. Now, the goal of these series of webinars is to equip you to be able to work better with your children, to work better with children in your care if you're an educator. So welcome once again. And I'm just going to go ahead. We have here today an expert in the field, a force to reckon with. And so come out with all your questions, and I think we'll be ready to answer those questions. If we cannot answer them, we're going to be sure to point you in the right direction to getting your questions answered. Okay, so welcome once again. Please remember to tell us your name and tell us where you are joining us from, wherever in the world. Say hello, drop a quick hello, and we'll go right ahead. All right, so I'm going to go without talking too much. It's 4 minutes into the time. We're going to try to stay within 1 hour or less. Oh, yeah, within 1 hour. So I'm going to go ahead now to bring in our guests. Would you join me, please, to welcome Kiran Tevtia? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Ifiok. It's such a pleasure to be here. And
Yes, it
thank you for
is.
the invite. And I look forward for a wonderful evening.
Yes, 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 thank you. So Kiran, would you mind telling us just a little bit about yourself? Just give our viewers a little tip into what you do, who you are, and what we're going to be doing today.
Great. Talking about myself, I'm a child behavioral psychologist. I started being a mother while I was working as a software engineer. And that's when my passion and my interest began in raising the children, observing them. I read a lot of books, acquainted myself with child behavior, how it works. And then I professionally moved towards that when I did my master's in psychology and did courses in parenting, child rearing, developmental psychology. And I started practicing in daycares, preschools, and followed up by school. And now I'm having my private practice at pediatric clinics in India, in Mumbai. And that's the short part of the long. And in fact, if you okay, I'm so passionate about children that when I see people walking in my society, sometimes I just do not notice who are the parents. My eyes are just fixed on the children. Thanks so much. So it's a pleasure to be here, and my primarily the work encompasses working with young children to older children, understanding what are the concerns, what is the temperamental aspect of it, what is the nature, the nurture aspect of it, where the parenting dynamics is coming in picture, where the couple chemistry is coming in picture. So I work apart from individualized with the children. I also strongly believe in family based therapy. So that's how I worked in tandem. Yes, that's
Wow.
me.
So you said something, you mentioned something about how you react and how you behave when you're around children. And I think that's something we both have in common. We take our eyes completely off the parents and we focus on the children. And that's something that very much happens to me all the time, all the time. So thank you so much for joining, for being here with us today. You mentioned something about family-based practice. I would really, really love for you, if we have time, to talk a little bit more about that, because it's something that we really need to hear. We're joined here already. We have Maureen. She's here with us. Thank you, Maureen, for joining us. Welcome, Maureen. Please tell us where you're joining us from. Tell us whether you're a teacher or you're an educator or you're someone who is just in love, or someone who is just in love with early childhood or children in general. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. So as you join us, please, just three things we need you to tell us. Tell us your name, tell us where you're joining us from, and tell us what you do. Are you a parent or an educator or someone who just loves children? Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so we're going to go right ahead because I know that there is a lot. This topic is very heavy, but we're going to touch it in bits and pieces and see how much we can cover within the short time that we have. And that way we give good value in such a way that our viewers can relate to. So we're looking at anxiety here. In the first session, the first part, we talked about separation anxiety, particularly. And one of the things that we mentioned there was that separation anxiety is just one way in which children experience anxiety. So I know that there are plethora, there's a lot of ways children can experience fear or anxiety or worry. The early years children are at that stage of their life where they go through a lot of transitions. They go through a lot of changes in order to understand the environment. So for preschoolers, what would you say is anxiety? What would you say is fear and worry? I think that's a very good place to start. Let's know exactly what we're talking about when we say fear, anxiety, and worry.
Mhm. Okay. So if you pick up the word as fear, right,
Mm-hmm.
then we have to understand evolutionary, biologically, a human being is dependent on the adults for a really long time for his or her basic needs, right?
Yeah.
So it is important. Just imagine if our children are so independent, say like a lizard's child, right, who is just running,
Yeah.
running up and all over the place, right? So just
Yeah.
imagine how unsafe the child is going to be, who is not yet developed the cognitive ability and the ability to do problem solving and an ability to do risk analysis, right? So it
Yeah.
is good where the child wants to stay connected with the parents. First, we should see it in a positive manner. Instead of thinking that, all right, my child is 2 years old and I have to make the child socially more ready. So let me start practicing, testing the child, like by taking the child to a play area and then kind of hiding behind and thinking that let me test the child. It's never a great idea. It's just going to increase the anxiety of the child. So the child has to feel completely connected with the parents, and has to have the safety that the child is looking out for, right? And the confidence in the parent. So this is where the separation anxiety, which is biologically there to keep the child safe, right, is there. So we should not be pushing away the child from there. And apart from separation, the lockdown has brought in another challenge where the children got so used to. Just a while back, I was speaking to Ifioke, where she was sharing that the preschools have started, and there are children who have lapped it up like, just waiting for it to happen. And there are children where the anxiety has been quite high. So please do not compare your child with others. There can be, based on the unique setup, the children get used to seeing both the parents around. And when anything changes in their environment, when there is unpredictability, even if it is good for the child, but the unpredictability is that the child is going to someone else. Child is required to come out from, to, hold on to himself or herself that, yes, I can still trust some other adults as well. So you're going to give time to the child. So these are the different anxieties, especially when we're talking about the preschoolers. And another interesting thing, if you okay, that I have noticed in preschoolers, especially who are like 4 years, like that, is a little black and white kind of following the rule. So where they are very worried about putting on the mask, and not just their own. The moment the parent's mask goes down, they climb all over the parent and try to fix that mask on their face. So the sense of control, an overt sense of control by seeing the world from a single prism, that is another anxiety that I see growing up in the children. So whenever something different happens in your child's life, including starting to go to preschool, the child could regress as well. The child who had already been toilet trained can suddenly start wetting the bed. So all this psychosomatic and biological signs also can set in temporarily in the child's life. So these are all kind of fear, worry, and anxieties which can set in for this particular age group. Yep. Ethiopia, it's all yours now.
All right. So from what you've actually spoken a lot. I think you've like given us a summary of what we're going home with today. You've spoken about anxiety and fear and worry. Now, are these three synonymous, or is there a difference? Or is there a relation to this with regards to preschoolers? Is there a connection between anxiety, fear, and worry, or are they the same thing when we consider with in line of preschoolers?
Right. Now, if you think from preschoolers' point of view, they have a limited vocabulary, most of them, to express exactly what they are feeling, right? They would more be towards externalizing what they are, if there is any anxiety or any fear in them. So it's very difficult to kind of separate them out. But yes, when we notice the child is getting overtly clingy to the parents, right? When the child is regressing back to what the child was already achieved that milestone, well, the child is suddenly feeling restless in the nighttime, is not able to, is getting overstimulated, or is showing a lot of resistance. Suddenly, if there's a change of behavior, that's the time when we have to kind of think about doing something, or maybe increasing our connect and comfort, and if required, going for an expert or external help as well. So it's very difficult if you try to say that, okay, can the child be, is the child anxious, or is the child worried, or is the child fearful of something? Right? It's very difficult. But some children whom I've noticed is being fearful of something like, if there are insects or something, or lizard or something. Like there was a 4.5-year-old child who just would run out of the room when the child will see a lizard. Right? So some kind of those we can definitely categorize it when we see the triggers. But most of the times, even trigger can be as simple as, maybe especially during Corona times, I noticed that if there was some sickness in the family, or when both the parents were admitted or were away from the child, right, for those quarantine period, then the child would, because the sense of control, sense of predictability. There was a loss of that. Then the child can show whatever we want to bracketize a sense of worry. I would not put more into worry and fear. I would
Worry.
more put into anxiety, I would say. That's why most of the time we have terminologies like stranger anxiety, separation anxieties. We try to put
Anxiety.
anxiety what more for the preschooler, and we keep the worry part and the fear part for a little older children.
Older.
When they
Okay.
say I'm worried.
Yeah, because that's the vocabulary that my
Yeah.
4-year-old is beginning to have now. I'm worried. I'm like, okay, so what is worry? But you can see her express herself that she's just anxious about something stemming from a place of ignorance. And so for me, from experience, and from what you have said now, we can actually say that preschoolers experience anxiety, and it stems from that place of not knowing what to expect. And so because of that, they can show different, they can express that anxiety in different ways, which could be fear or even worry.
In fact, there is one more thing which I'm noticing in preschool, especially during specifically in the pandemic, is loss of control, right? Like the whole routine is homebound in many countries and many
Mm,
places right now. So there's a sense of loss of control in what all they can do around. There are too many no's around. So the child with this age appropriate sense of autonomy which the child needs, when the child doesn't get, then there is bound to be some maladapted, what do I term it as, snatching of control in the areas where the child should not have been
should
trying to
have.
snatch it. So
Yeah.
that's another area. In fact, there is one more very interesting thing which I, was speaking to one of the parents. I'm so sorry, but when we're talking about
Yes.
preschoolers, so many cases start jumping in my mind. So, and it's a wonderful question if you which you answered. Is it a anxiety? Is it a fear? Is it a worry? So it's a wonderful question. So there was one particular, especially it's important to mention in the pandemic, the overexposure, because I mean, see, it's very easy to start slamming the parents. Why are you doing it? But then they are also occupied with a lot of things during this lockdown, right? Right from the
Yeah.
financial security, right from taking care of their own health, health of the elders, youngers, there are a number of things, right? So then, and of course, in some of the cases, I've noticed that the marital discord has also increased. We're not so used to seeing each other so much, right? So then, when they're not so available for the children,
Yeah.
and when the child is going more towards the screen time, a lot of time when the child has been left, right, unknowingly, knowingly, whatever it is, to the, YouTube,
Okay, I
unregulated, where
know.
there's no adult who is checking. You can imagine
Screen.
what all the child. There's a 3.5 year old child who is subjected to all sorts of horror. The child has built up such vocabulary, accent like an
Yeah.
adult, tries to use humor like an adult. So you can imagine, the
Yes,
internet,
yes.
and that's more worrying for me as a counselor. The internet has become like an alternate source of blast of
Parents, yeah, yeah,
information for the
yeah.
child, and uncensored information which the child really cannot make sense of, but the child believes in that because children don't differentiate. Young children, you can't say they should start putting filters to their learning. They're anti. They're just going to learn everything.
Yes, yes, they're a blank page.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one point, that exposure to screen time, unregulated, uncensored. That's another thing which can cause a lot of cognitive chaos. I know this is
Yes.
how it is, right? So
Hmm.
that's tough as well. Yeah.
I'm gonna pick up on a phrase you just mentioned, said something about cognitive chaos, and honestly, that is just, I feel that's just the right term for it. Cognitive chaos. There's so much going on in their brains, and they're unable to even understand what's going on, let alone being able to relate to the environment, okay, in the midst of all that chaos. And I think that's where it stems from. Now, how as adults, what do we look out for? What does anxiety look like um, in preschoolers? Speaking of cognitive chaos and being able to relate to the environment, even in the midst of that chaos, what does it look like? What do we need? What are the signs that parents and educators out there need to look out for to be able to ascertain that a child is going through anxiety, that a child is having anxiety issues, what do we look out for?
Right. So the beauty about this early age is that they externalize everything, right? So most of the time, you wouldn't find a young preschooler sitting and brooding at one corner, and when you go and check and they can't explain the why part.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, as a parent or as an adult, we may keep saying why you are like that. It's not expected for them to answer that why, right? So, but yes, if we notice that yes, the child is becoming clingy. That's one of the reasons
Mm-hmm.
the child doesn't want to leave mother at all. Like I get cases where even if the mother goes to the washroom, the child is standing right outside,
Yeah.
right, and is crying for the mom. And if somewhere the parents are getting the fear, that's another checklist which I tell the parents to check is: are you feeling fearful of leaving your child with someone, and are you then forced to adopt manipulative ways to make it happen,
Mm.
right? Like if you have to even go out for some grocery, and if you have to tell somebody, take my child somewhere else so that my child doesn't see me, that means the fear is coming in the parent.
Mm-hmm.
So if it reaches to that level where you're and where you go to a store and when the child demands something, the preschooler says, I want that. Because I want and no are two beautiful, their favorite words. So when the
Yeah.
child says, I want, and as a parent, if you become fearful that, oh no, my child is going to lose it and I don't know what's going to happen, so let me buy it for the child. So if your actions start
Mm-hmm.
getting decided by the worry that what the child is going to do, I think it's a good time to kind of step back and think, because at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
children need the sense of control coming in from the parents.
Yeah.
So
So,
that is what I put it as checklist. Check in
mm-hmm.
yourself: are you becoming fearful of the reactions of your child?
Okay. Wow, that's a big one. So, as parents, when you want to step out and you're fearful of the reaction of your children, then you might want to step back and check that your child is not going through a session or a period of anxiety or fear. Because I think, like we said earlier, that fear could be expression of that of anxiety. And so check it, honestly, I need to put this down for myself, because sometimes I have been tempted to, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this right now, I'm just going to go out on my own, because um maybe my child is hungry, or because I just don't know what to expect from that child at that moment. So but then I think if this is occurring very frequently, according to you, we need to check it. So thank you very much for saying that. So early signs of anxiety: if a child is clingy, or if a child is insatiable. Can you speak a little bit more about that? If a child cannot be satisfied, has wants, and we feel as parents um, compelled to answer them or to give them what they want. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
Right. See, one more thing, if you, which I'm noticing, especially during this time, is that the buildup of anxiety because the sleep needs of the child has not been met.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oftentimes we underestimate the amount of sleep that a young child needs. Right. So, and especially I am noticing it especially happening more during the lockdown because parents are working from home.
Yeah.
Previously there was a routine that the child had of going coming back, and especially because of I know we all we have online schooling, with due respect to all the wonderful job the teachers are doing, but then the onus has come on the parents to make it happen for the preschoolers. And what I notice is once they have bribed, forced, or done whatever they could have done to ensure that the
Done.
child sat through the online schooling, they say now it's hands off and I need to relax now, right? And what they
Mm-hmm.
mean by relax is they're doing their own stuff, and the child probably is doing something which is
Else,
overstimulating. Child is
yes.
not getting the rest.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And to tell you, this is something that I am guilty of at some point. And so, yeah, because there's sometimes when I really need to work. I've done everything I can do for the child to get her set up, engaged. And these children are very smart, okay? And so they know that at this time, mommy is going to be engaged in something else, but I want her all to myself. And they could use that. I'm using my children as, as an example here. They could use that to say, now is the time to get what I want, because I know that because she needs to be busy, she needs to be engaged, and she needs me away. So I'm going to ask for the impossible, and I know I'm going to get it. So it's
In
about
fact,
manipulation then.
that is another thing, right? Are we as a parent passing on our anxieties to the
Mm-hmm.
child?
Yes.
Right? I'm anxious, and I put it as a tick mark for myself that if I'm able to make my child sit in the online schooling, I'm going to be a good father or good mother. I've made it a checklist for myself. Now I'm so anxious to make it happen with my child. So my
Yeah.
anxieties and the child then probably would start seeing that moment as a very, very anxiety ridden moment. In fact, I noticed that for academics as well,
Mm-hmm.
because the whole onus of making things happen, they didn't subscribe for it. They were doing very good, making the child sleep on time, making the child eat,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? Making the child socialize. Very nice. But then now about the whole education systems, which they were
See?
not prepared for. So that anxiety also rubs on to the young children's anxiety, including
Mm-hmm.
older one also. And it
Yeah.
brings a lot of conflict.
Yeah, wow. I know we could just go on and on and on and on about, what causes, what anxiety and fear looks like and how we can look out for it. We've also spoken a little bit about what causes the situation of fear, of anxiety in children. And I would like you to throw light on one or two of the most common causes of anxiety in preschoolers. One or two or three, or in your practice, I know you see this very often. So what from your experience can you say is the most common cause? That way we can begin to relate to say, do I see that in my child, or do I see that in my family, or with the children I work with?
Right. So I think one of the most common, which I find in this particular age, is that the child is not ready to leave the adults. And
Mm,
especially when the lockdown is going away, we are very anxious to ensure that they get the social life. So we have started taking them out in the play area, but then I often get a feedback that the child is not ready to leave the parents and go join the children.
yeah.
So the social part of it, which in any case as a parent, we were feeling anxious, we were feeling as
Mm,
if we were robbing it away from the children. So now
yeah.
probably, if you ask me, we are kind of could be overdoing it. So,
Mm,
yes, we give the platform, we keep the routine going on each day of going there, but then let the child decide when is the child ready to go away from you. So that
yeah.
social integration is what I notice that parents often come with. The second thing which I notice, especially when there are siblings, is the conflicts between the siblings, where to draw a line. I notice sometimes like a child who is like 4 years, 5 years, and suddenly a younger one is there, the tension goes there. So the child is doing, which I get for the parent, that the child is trying to seek attention when I'm, feeding the baby, or when I'm talking to someone on phone, the child is all over me, asking me to stop
Mm-hmm.
the phone and give him the attention. So that's another thing which I notice as anxiety, that right when the parent is up in going to something which needs concentration, the child is kind of trying to pull in. So
Mm,
these are the two things which I notice. One is social integration, the other is
mm,
this need to keep getting attention. The
yeah.
parents are sitting with each other on the couch, and the child sits right in the center and tries to get the attention. Talk to me. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's attention seeking is what I notice as well.
Okay, so you've mentioned two things: separation from adults, separation from the primary caregiver, or attention, seeking attention. When you talk seeking attention, I think for me, as you were speaking, one of the things that readily comes to mind is children. From my experience, children necessarily or do not necessarily just get up and start seeking attention. It stems from a place of hunger and a place of lack. So whenever you are with your child, it's important to give them that quality time and quality attention. And what does it mean? Even if it's 1 minute or so, you mentioned something about putting your phone away and giving that child the 1 or 2 minutes attention, and they leave you to do what you want to do. And I've seen that happen with my children. So when you speak of attention, how do we as parents and as educators also give children attention in such a way that it does not push them towards being anxious? How can we do that?
Right. So, there are a lot of branches in this, the whole attention thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Along with the requirement of age appropriate boundary, along with
Yeah.
the requirement of, slowly, slowly letting the child know that parents could also be needing a space from you, right? Which is important as well.
Yes.
So these are the couple of things which I share with the parents. Of course, like first thing which you share, that even if there are siblings, more than one child, it is important to spend one-to-one time, even if it'll say 15, 20 minutes. And if it's a young child, okay, and if you're in the middle of your work and you notice that it has been some time since you connected with your child, just get up. When you're going to fetch your water, give attention to your child. Whatever the child is working on at that time, sit with the child maybe 5, 10 minutes. Look for praise movements. Look for what is it that the child is putting in efforts,
Mm-hmm.
right? And give the child the wow, the way you are making the tower. This is amazing. This is wonderful, right? So that is preventive way of giving attention, where the child keeps getting those little doses of attention. When you are
Yeah.
crossing the child to get something, you just kind of put your hand on the child's head like this, and like maybe a hug or
Mm-hmm.
something, maybe a little
Yeah.
wrestling or something, and then you go away, or a little twisting round and round, and you just say, all right, buddy, I'm back to my work, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's a nice thing. First
Yeah.
thing. Second thing, I always tell, like, I sometimes parents share with me that I try to ignore when I know that the child is doing it to seek my attention, right? Like, I found it really amazing and beautiful when you spoke about attention, the need of the child,
Yeah.
the need that the child has for a parental attention and approval. So my suggestion always is that the moment you come to know that yes, the child is seeking your attention, in fact, could be as simple as preschool, especially the moment they do something, they try to look at the adult figure around in the room. Whether they have done something good or whether they have
Mm-hmm.
even done potty in their diapers, they just look at the adult. Sometimes the adults say, "Why don't you come and tell me?" But the
Yeah.
way the child is looking at you is giving you non-verbal communication as well.
Patient. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes even this one also, I strongly believe that causes an anxiety, the verbal communication skills, because this
Mm-hmm.
is also an age where the child is building verbal communication. And as a parent, we often, especially if I see it more happening with boys, right, where we say, all right, you know what, my child is 2.5, there's another girl who is prattling, and my child is just not telling me why, right? So this
Yeah.
whole comparison business is another thing which puts a lot of anxiety on the child, where
Yes.
even when we
Yes.
understand what the child is saying, we keep telling the child, speak. The child is, there could be a number of other reasons.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm so sorry, but when I went into the new anxiety, that is a verbal communication, which brings in completely different things, I lost the train of where we were riding on.
That's okay. That's okay. That's
Because
absolutely
verbal
right.
communication is such a big anxiety for parents, that I get.
That's
I wrote an
absolutely fine.
article on that.
Oh, you did? Okay, so please, we'll
Yeah.
be very happy if you can share the link of that article after this. I'll be very
I
happy to share it on for everyone on here. So I want to just welcome everyone who has been with us. Thank you, Nduka Benjamin, for joining us. Thank you so much, Maureen, for joining us and staying on. Thank you, Ogechi, for being here. And for those of you who have been coming in and out, I've been seeing you coming in and out. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And please, thank you for joining us. Send this link right now to your family and friends who you know need to be here. I need to hear the value that we're giving out right now. Thank you so much again. So I'm gonna steer you back. Yes,
I
Kian, you want
got
to
the
say
train. It was about attention, and it's
attention?
very
Yes,
important to wrap up that topic.
yes, yes. I was gonna
So,
just steer you back there.
you know what? There was a study, okay, that
Mm-hmm.
when children, they were about third or fourth grade children, when they had learned a new subject, new topic, okay, and
Yeah.
immediately after that, when an exam was taken, okay, then whatever was their performance was captured. Now,
Okay.
similar set of children, similar abilities, when they were taught the topic and given a 10 or 15 minutes of break, okay, the child moved around, gossiped with
Mm-hmm.
each other and all, 10, 15 minutes of break. And when they came back, their exam performance was much better.
Better.
You know
Oh
why?
wow. Mm-hmm.
Because when the children take a break, or as a human being, when we take a break, our brain is rehearsing or recapturing or
Yeah.
recollecting it at a much higher speed.
Pace.
So
Yeah.
it's like a revision at the time, and then of course
Mm-hmm.
the production of the exam could be much better. So anyways,
Mm-hmm.
so going back to attention, now, this whole thing of ignore the child who is doing things for seeking attention. Like if the child knows that I shouldn't be jumping on the couch, and the child goes on the couch, looks at you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always suggest to the parents, that if you know your child is looking at you, always look back to the child.
Yeah.
Right? Just because you're looking at the child doesn't really mean you're approving of what the child
The
is doing.
behavior. Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
You can just look at the child and say, hey, you are on the sofa, on the couch, right? We can't do that. And you go there and you are helping your child. Let's come down, hold my hand, and here we jump down. What I say is, why do we have to make our attention so pricey when that's a basic thing which keeps
Thing
the
they're
child
looking for.
connected to us?
Yes. Yes.
And more the child is connected to you, like an umbrella, the safer the
Mm-hmm.
child feels, right? And the lesser are the chances that the child will push back when you really want the child to do, those basic no's which are non-negotiable. So
Mm-hmm.
more you
Mm-hmm.
connect, more lesser is thus what we put under oppositional
Yeah.
behavior. I wouldn't call it as a disorder, but
A
oppositional
disorder.
behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
please give
basically,
attention. Give
yeah.
attention.
So basically, we go back to the place of connection before correction. And
Yes.
that way, when children feel connected to you, they're better able to listen to you. They're better able to trust that you care for them. And so they care, I mean, they are more prone to accepting your instruction or accepting your guidance. Don't forget that these children are at a stage in their lives where they're exploring their world and finding themselves, identifying, finding their identities. And so when they're able to connect that identity to you as a carer, they're more able to trust in your judgment and follow your guidance. So, well, thank you so much for bringing that. I think it was very good for us to have this talk on attention because it really connects to how children express themselves in anxiety or how they're able to self-regulate. So thank you very much. We'll move on to the next one. One of the things that I want us to iron out here is, where do we draw that line between normalcy and disorder, where preschoolers are concerned and where we talk about anxiety? Where do we draw the line? Um, what is normal, and when do parents need to go out there to seek help? When do practitioners or educators need to step out and say, this child has gone past the band of normalcy and needs help? Where do we draw that line?
Right. So I would say whatever is the child's, first we have to notice if something around the child has changed, right? Younger children, suppose if it is some function as well, suppose a lot of relatives have suddenly come in. So they
Mm-hmm.
tend to become a little unnerved because their routine goes for a toss. They are getting less attention from their caregivers, right? And they can't predict when they are going to get it again. Okay, there people are a little lost at the time, and the adults are a little, engaged at the time, so to speak. So if it is like temporary, please do check if something around the child has changed, and if that thing has gone away, then give that time, maybe 2 to 3 weeks of time. That's the beauty of this young age, that within 2 to 3 weeks of time, that is the time generally which is also preschools also tell the parents that, all right, let the child settle down, give the
Yeah.
child 3 weeks of time, 3 weeks to a month or so, and but please do not break the routine of not getting the child, oh, he's too anxious today, I'm not getting the child to the school. Please don't break that routine, right? So that's
Yeah.
the beauty of this age group, that within those few weeks, if the routine has come back, give the time to the child to kind of observe the child if the child is again coming back to the older routine.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, if the child, you have noticed it is happening week on and week in, then if it is affecting the physiological needs of the child, the eating, the sleeping, the social
Mm.
aspect of the child, right? I don't add academics here. Academics is our human need to do well in life. We have put that aim for the child, right? Sometimes, you know what? I think that if only the preschools were not starting from 6 months, we would have probably started truly believing that if
Mm-hmm.
my child doesn't go to a school, my child will never learn how to walk, right? So,
Yeah.
children have this innate ability to learn.
To
All right,
learn,
if
yeah.
proper platform is given, suitable
Given.
platform which gives a child an opportunity to do problem solving, critical thinking is given to the child. So if the child, whatever is the behavior of the child, but if it starts affecting the sleep of the child is not able to get whatever is the age appropriate sleep needs, if it is affecting the child's ability to eat solid food, chew and eat solid food based on the again age
Yeah.
appropriateness. Now often, when I ask parents that it has 1.5 year old child, I start ask, okay, has the child started eating, okay, solid? Then the parents say yes, though the child is not having rice, the child is not having, you know it's vegetable or dal, but the child eats
Mhm.
biscuit and the
Yeah.
child eats noodles. So I say that's not my definition of eating solids. Solid is home cooked food. Has the child started eating? So the food
Mhm.
part, sleep part, and connect. When
Yeah.
the child does something, is the child looking for, is pointing it to someone? When you are pointing, is the child looking, towards that direction? Is the child
Mm.
overall connected? When, as a parent, you are leaving, is the child registering that yes, that secure attachment? Is the child,
Attachment.
going, just register, maybe not get distressed, it's all right, but the child is registering, so as long as the social eating and sleeping is going on, if there's anything else where you have noticed something coming in, maybe give it some more time to the child. Even if you
Mm.
see the child started peeing, right, or the child started pooping back, so give child some more time.
Mm. So it's important that we actually observe our children. It's important that we actually observe our children to see, I mean, very closely to see when their basic needs started being affected, like food and sleep and the ability to connect. And honestly, I say these basic needs because these are one of the most important things for children at this age. So when that is being affected, then the cause for worry starts. Now, I know that children at this age also, they have inconsistencies, okay, with their sleep and with their, feeding. They are just their taste buds are just developing. Okay, they are just able to understand the connection between rest, okay, and how their body responds to their need for rest. Because there's some children who know they feel sleepy, but they still fight it so much. And connecting that to anxiety, where do we say, okay, this is a problem, and how do we connect it? How do we connect? Because
Right.
normally children go through that issue.
Right. Sleep is very important, yes.
Mhm.
And that is why, we have all these experiments in 3 months to 6 months. Should we do it the CIY, cry it out way?
Yeah.
Should we let the child co-sleep? We have so much
Hmm.
of research around. So you can imagine how, right from the beginning, it's so important.
Important,
Now,
yeah.
whatever we do in first 5 6 months, there's no problem with that. But slowly, slowly, having a routine. Even if, for example, I notice sometimes when parents say, "All right, you know what, my child, we were busy throughout the day. The child couldn't sleep, so when the child came back, slept at around 5 p.m. in the evening." And then got up at around 6:30. So of course the child wouldn't be sleeping by 9:30 or
Yeah,
10.
yeah.
I would still say, no matter what, your routine should still be the same. That you'd say, all right, it's time to go to sleep. Whatever is your routine of sleep, do it at the same time. You turn off the lights. And generally, our definition of sleeping for the child is make child sleep. You can't
Mm.
take that as your aim, right? Make child
Yeah.
sleep. We can give a platform to the child that, there's a consistency in the routine. After that, once as a parent, we are slept back, and, if it is for younger children, most of the younger children would be, maybe in the same room or this different room, whatever is your family set up. So if you've
Mm-hmm.
said your goodbyes and good nights and all, then, if you can just go back to your room, or if you are co-sleeping, then you just lie down and you pretend you're sleeping. In matter of whether your child decides to get up and go grab a toy and starts playing with it, as long as the
Play.
lights are off, as long as it is not screen-based device, as long as it is safe. So if you're worried that my child will run out of the room, just latch the room, right, before sleeping, so that you get that peace of mind, and let the child
Mind.
roam around in the room, you know, um, and maybe sleep over the toys.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to understand, the more we keep doing these efforts of, especially for a 1.5 2 years 3 years, the child is going to get heavier.
Yeah.
Sometimes, parents come to me and say, my child can't sleep till I don't do, like rocking and this one. How long will you do?
Do that, yeah.
Sometimes, the child gets up at 2, and oh my god, we have to make him sleep, but then he just doesn't sleep, so we make him
Mm-hmm.
watch YouTube for some time. All right, you watched it, now go to sleep. Whatever the child says, bring me water, we get the water. Then the child says no, so we don't know
Oh.
what the child is thinking. Hello, so you're stimulating the child so much at the dead of the
Exactly,
night.
exactly.
And that's not the problem. If you The problem is the parent. Next day the child can afford sleeping longer, parent cannot afford sleeping longer the next day. They have a routine, and then they would be emotionally distressed. And because
Mm-hmm.
my sympathies always lie with the child, I say, I want you to be in your best of emotional spirit, so that you give a good
Yeah,
environment to the child, so you sleep. If you know that the room is properly safe for the child, you sleep. Let the child move around in the room.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So please, our touch and our voice can be stimulating for children. Our eye contact
That's
can be
true.
stimulating. So
That's true.
be
That's
very
very true.
careful before intervening too much. In fact, if the child is down and is crying, my suggestion is maybe you lie down with the child, minimal this, and just put your hand on the child, but you're still lying down, right? The
Mm-hmm.
child has the safety to maybe come
Yeah,
near you,
yeah.
right? Feel safe and connected, but then you are not stimulating the child.
Yes,
And then
yes.
maybe give it some time for 2 to 3 weeks. If the child is just not sleeping, then maybe it's a time to visit your doctor to say, see if maybe something else is
Yeah.
going on out there. Yeah.
In fact, I'm very interested in the duration you mentioned now, 2 to 3 weeks, because sometimes as parents, we may be just very impatient and say, oh, I've tried it for 2 days or 3 days or one week, and we feel that that's enough. But I think it's in the consistency, and that's one thing that we drive when building routines or keeping to routines, as you have said here. It's important to have those routines and stick to it. And sticking to it does not mean trying it once and leaving it the following day. You know, it takes time. And from experience, building routines could take even up to a month for young children. But the good thing about it is that when they eventually get it, you find that they're able to go through their day with less chaos because they have one of the most important things that they need at this age, predictability. When they're able to predict the environment and know what to expect, it reduces the anxiety that they feel, that they express.
Right.
But from what you've said, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, in
Go
fact,
ahead.
there are two more things. There are two more things out here.
Mhm.
One is, where we try to think that probably preschooling, the first 5 years of the life of a child
Yes.
is not is only about ensuring they get their A's and B's and one, two, threes right. We got to understand that that's a moment when the child needs to learn to sleep on his or her own, learn to eat on his or her own by the time first 5 years of life, right?
Yes.
Needs to be able
Yes.
to get the confidence that yes, while I can keep watching my parents back, I can keep taking steps to increase my separation from them, keep going a little further inside the park, right? So these are
Yeah.
the three
Yeah.
things. If we use manipulation in any of these three things, they are bound to cause problems somewhere. For example, if you say that, all right, my job is that my child eats by hook or crook. So I put a phone in front of my child and I said, you know what, just finish it, whatever it is. Now the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, we got that work done. But the thing is that what are the critical, in children's age, there is something called as critical years of learning,
Learning.
right?
Yes.
That critical years of learning when go away, the screen time stays. In fact, it keeps getting 2 hours, and the child is just did not learn to enjoy the food. The child says, "I hate this, I hate that." Child has become so fussy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, first we didn't give an opportunity to the child to learn,
To learn.
right? So we got to kind
Wow.
of yeah, so it's important. That's one thing. And the second thing was, sometimes when there are more adults in the house, right? We have grandparents, maybe we have some joint kind of family with our cousins and all this thing. Then what happens is if the child is having meltdown out of overstimulation, lack of sleep, anxiety, separation, what
Mm-hmm.
kind of anxiety, right? Then, sometimes people around the child, especially if it's one of those starry child, maybe the only girl, the only boy, the first, whatever, there's so many ones.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
everybody stops their work and they're like, keep giving, oh, do this, do that, do this. It's so overwhelming for the child, so many instructions coming in. I always suggest one adult at a time. So if you
Mm-hmm.
are father or mother who is taking care of the child, rest everybody should keep their routine. I know it's difficult. It's difficult to
Yeah.
see your child wailing, right? But then trust the adult, and keep doing your work, because when you keep doing your work around, that becomes that acts like an anchor for the child to keep bringing the child into here and now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the child
Yes.
in between the rages, that curves goes up, down, ups, down the
Down.
crest.
Yeah.
Keep noticing what others are doing. All right, everybody else is calm. The child gets his or her calmness
Come
from the
from there.
calm adults around. And if it becomes, and I tell the adult who is taking care of the child to focus less on I need to take the child out from this
Out of the
emotional state
situation.
and put him in. That's not the aim. The aim is I need to support my child as long as my child feels. Just a moment. If you're, I think the battery of
Okay.
my device is going
Okay.
to go. I'll just put it just so that we do not unceremoniously crumble.
It's okay. So okay, but while you're doing that, you said something that was very important that I want to highlight here, and it's about taking the child out of the situation and not giving the child space to actually get his or her calm from, the calmness around. And I want to stress on the child getting his or her calm. pointing it to self-regulation as being very important with regards to helping children to manage their own anxiety. I would really like you to talk about that. If we, well, we are already, oh my goodness, we're already an hour into this. Okay. But speaking about self regulation as a very important tool to helping children manage their own anxiety. I would like you to touch a little bit on that as we prepare to summarize or to round up our chat.
Right. This is important. Like,
Yes.
most of people who are are as an educator, or
Mhm.
anybody who is working with child in a professional capacity, right?
Yeah.
Do understand that as far as self-regulation goes, it's equally a biological development as it is, a cognitive or emotional development,
Yes.
right? We know that there is a prefrontal cortex which needs to get developed. The
Yeah.
nerve connection between the limbic and the rational areas needs to get developed. It's a process.
W.
In the meanwhile, if how we can help a child is by accepting each emotional state of the child, right? That means the instructions like, hello, you first stop crying, then I will listen to you. We
Yeah.
stop using these words, right?
Mm.
See, we have to understand that, we feel unnerved because somewhere we didn't become parents in silos. We had our own childhood as well. And many
Yeah.
of us probably were not accepted when we were crying or angry or mean or everything else, right?
Yeah.
All the uncomfortable things that we just kind of say with Pollyanna effect, start saying, no, no, we were all good. So whatever we have been, so it's important to accept your child, right? This line, do
Mm-hmm.
not have an image of your child that my child cannot do it, right? How could you do it? Please don't carry an image of your child. Your child is
Yeah.
capable of doing everything.
Everything and
So, if you
anything.
truly believe my child is, how could you tell a lie to me? You never did it before.
Mm.
Well, there will always be a first time. So if you accepted that yes, everything and anything is possible as the child
Yeah.
grows up, his or her
Mm.
influences are going to
Yes.
increase. The child is going to one fine day use some curse words on you as well, right? Is going to bang the door at least once in the life. Is going to bite someone at least once in the life, at least. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's a child growing. So if you accept it, doesn't mean you're approving of it. I can
Of it.
imagine
Yes.
how tough it is. Yes. And if we focus more on effect of what the child did, right? If the child
Yeah.
threw the car and it got broken, there is no hurry to replace it the moment the child is happy, right?
Yes.
Oh my God, it's done. I can see how tough it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tough. And you know what? Our budget for the next gift is in so and so month. So we'll go out, and if you wish, you can buy a car for yourself,
Yeah.
right? So this instant gratification is something which we should be aware of,
Yeah.
because waiting threshold and frustration tolerance is key things as well, which helps the child in the longer term. So accept
Yeah.
your child, support your child. I'm never in a favor if you to leave a crying child alone in the room.
Alone.
Even if it is a 13-year-old child, I always say that, do not worry when you say, get out of my room. All right, don't worry. I'm right here. I'm right here next to the door. I'm not even looking at you. Right? I'm just reading my book. I'm not even looking at you. It works beautifully. Just the
Yeah.
presence that yes, there is somebody out there. And
Yes.
do not sometimes, especially for children, we feel, we have this biological way to protect the child. That's why,
Yeah.
it's all ingrained in our DNA to love a small child, find it cute. That's why even if it's an advertisement of, washing powder, they use children. It's so funny, right? But anyways, we love children in the advertisements.
Yeah.
So, but then we have this urge or surge to hug the crying child. I always suggest if your child is not comfortable to be hugged, don't be physically so
Yeah.
so pushy.
Yeah.
Give room to the child. Just be around as far as the child is comfortable. The child knows
Comfortable.
that you're there,
Yes.
and just use your soothing voice. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not comfortable, as what we say, parenting in public, right? If you're not comfortable being watched, pick up your child, go to the closest space where you and your child will be comfortable, leave your child and provide support. Keep yourself safe. As I said, do not assume the child can't do anything. And you know what? How do we carry a child? We carry a child the way a cat carries its kitten. All the limbs are
Oh,
away. House is away, right? I mean, you don't carry with a neck, but you carry it in a manner where your weapons are away from you. You can't blame a child that
yes.
my child bit me. You child, we are all animals first.
Okay,
You
we're not
want
going
to
to go
keep
into
yourself
that
safe.
argument. We're not going to go into that argument here, because that would just bring out the biologist in me, and then we'll probably have another hour and a half or two talking about that. Um, but right now, we've said a lot. We've talked about self-regulation. We've talked about delayed gratification. We've spoken a lot on this topic on how we can help preschoolers manage their fear, anxiety, and worry, and focusing basically on the fact that children, basically preschoolers precisely, express anxiety. They could be afraid of something, and because of that they express emotions of anxiety in different ways, and they may worry about something, but that's the expression of that worry is anxiety. And so basically for preschoolers, the word we use is anxiety, and that's where we hear of separation anxiety and the rest of them. So yeah, and we've also talked about what to look out for and when to seek for help as a parent or as a teacher. When you find that your child's basic needs are affected, then you might want to step back and do proper observations in order to help you find help for that child. Now, finally, from everything we have said here today, I would like you, Kiran, to just tell us what are the most important things that parents first should look out for. What do they need to know with regards to anxiety and their preschooler? And then we'll go over to the teachers, to educators. What's the most important thing that they need to bear in mind when helping a child during a difficult phase?
Right.
If it's,
Yeah, it's good that we are keep bringing the educators angle also
yes,
here. I'm a
yes.
strong proponent of it takes a community to raise a child, and as a parent also we should allow other players also to participate in raising the child, right? It does a lot good to the child. So I would first go to the educator because we didn't take it up at all in the whole session. I think as an educator, it is very important. I was associated with the school and preschool as well. So it's very important to just, let the child speak, right? Without judging, without saying, oh, you are a bad boy or a good girl or a good boy or a bad girl, without labeling the child,
Labeling, yeah.
right? And without having an image of the child, pre-image of the child that, oh, here he goes or here she goes
Again,
disturbing the class
yeah.
again, right? the
Tell me
child,
about
you
it.
know, the child who is working so hard to ensure that he or she being heard. As I say, as an educator especially, you probably cannot control to a great extent what environment the child could be getting back at home. But then if only the child sees that adult in you who can give that safety and comfort to the child just by listening to the child, and maybe those looking for those praise moments for efforts, the child is going to be fine. Immaterial of what environment the child could be getting at
Comes
home.
from.
Just one adult, well-meaning adult who can give, instill that confidence that I love you no matter
And
what.
give that secure
No
base.
matter
Yes.
what you
Yes.
do, you know,
Yeah.
see, it can't be conditional. It can't be, it can't have conditions like, you behave this way, then I'm going to
Then I'm
trust
gonna,
you.
yeah.
We got to keep trusting,
Yeah.
right? Till the time the child holds on to the trust. That's about educators. And of course, that's the biggest challenge which parents share with me, that, you know what, my child goes and tells the whole story to their teachers, which is very good.
Yeah.
Young
Oh,
children.
trust me, we could write a book about the stories. We could write
Yeah,
books and books and books about the stories.
And educators, like, there was a child who would suddenly, around 3-year-old child, who suddenly started doing this kind of, started looking at the walls and do like this with the hand movement. And I asked the parent that next day, that has the child started watching Spider-Man or something? So the parent said, yeah, we just recently started doing that. So the beauty about
Oh,
this age is that they imbibe it so quickly that
so
the
quickly.
teachers
Yes.
also
Yes.
start noticing it. In fact, even when the child sees a change in their home environment, teachers would start seeing, some challenges, like if the child has started going under the desk, is
Mm-hmm,
sitting
mm-hmm.
there, or has started, looking more outside the window, is more lost. So,
Yeah.
these are good signs for the teachers, especially, to take care of it. Yeah. And for the
Okay. And
parents,
then the parents. Yeah.
right? Yeah, for the parents, it's important to, firstly, of course, in an age appropriate manner, please keep giving the child the autonomy, right,
Mm-hmm.
to the child, of course, with the high level
Yeah.
boundaries,
Yeah.
right? Within that, keep giving flexibility or freedom to the child.
Yeah.
And often, if you, for this age, they need a lot of sensory inputs. There will be children who are jumping all the times. There will be children who are going round and round and then falling down, to the
Mm-hmm.
chagrin of the parents, who said, what is this odd thing that the child is doing round and round and then in a weird manner
Yeah.
falling down? Well, they need all this thing. Some children take water in the mouth and start spitting out. They will show all sorts of new things,
Behavior. Yes. Yeah.
behavior things, right? I would say, before you think of saying no, treat it as the need of the child to do it. However, if you see some problem, redirect the child
You
so that
do.
the same need can be
Can
met.
be met. Yes.
If the
Because.
child
Mhm.
is spitting in the living room, you rewrite, you know what, dear, you want to spit? Great. We go to the washroom and you spit your glory. Take this whole bottle and keep spitting it. So we redirect, so we respect the
Mhm.
sensory needs that the child
Need.
needs, because
Yes.
you know
Yes.
what? No matter which therapist you send, your child's body will tell what I need. And oftentimes
Need.
the child will
Yeah.
be doing those things, right?
That's
So
true.
look for
That's
that.
true.
Otherwise, repress, if you repress it, it can show
It
as
will
an
show up in
anxiety,
another way.
anxiety
Mhm.
somewhere,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's good we are on this note, because we didn't cover it before.
Cover it.
So
Yes.
wonderful, if
Yes.
you, I really enjoyed it, the lightheartedness. We didn't realize where the time,
How
you
time
know,
I know, right? Well,
wonderful.
I wish we could go on and on and on, but I think we've done justice to this. We have within the short space of time given so much value. And so, if you're still with us, if you're watching us or you're watching the replay, as you come on, just tell us where you're watching us from, and that you're watching the replay. And please, it would be nice to know what you've gotten value from this session. Thank you so much for staying on with us. For the people who are still on, if you're still on with us, please let's see your comments, let's see your questions if you have any of them. Otherwise, it has been wonderful speaking and listening and learning from you, Kiran. And I hope we can have you back sometime soon. And thank you so
Pleasure.
much for spending time with us. Thank you for your time and your sacrifice. We really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
So, all right. So I think we're gonna sign out here. We've already said our last words. If you're still with us, thank you so much, and we hope to see you again in another session. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, okay. We have Maureen. Maureen here says, oh, she's tuning in from Abuja, Nigeria. She said, wonderful session. Maureen has been with us from the beginning until the end. Kisses to you, Maureen. Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to believe that you've gotten great value and you've stayed on from beginning to end. Thank you. All right. I'm going to say bye now, and have a wonderful evening, Kiran. All right. Bye. Bye, everyone. Okay.